Oh, no, oh, oh. Welcome to the news. Stay to the end to find out how we get there. So, we're talking about finding a scaling team, and also playing the game like the childhood game in the pool where you try to find the other person, called Marco Pollo. Except in this instance, it's Micro Pollo, because we're trying to start on the foot of starting on the micro front. We're trying to start on the micro, not the macro, the micro. We're trying to start on the micro, and it's hard to not think about the macro. That's the purpose of trying to talk about that in today's podcast, because in essence, the idea of getting to the macro is based upon using a scaling team. The scaling team is something that's outside of yourself. It's outside of your control. So focusing on the micro is what we're trying to do. And Marco Pollo, the game Marco Pollo, is about trying to find it's a kid's game where you're trying to find another person when you're swimming in a swimming pool, for example. So we're trying to focus on the micro, get extremely focused on the micro, just trying to wear a few hats at a time, make a few jobs into one job, and make that into the beginning job to be able to start to push off into the marketplace, trying to and focus exceptionally on the micro, and looking for micro polo, like the game, the childhood game where you try to find the other person in the swimming pool when you're not looking, for example. That's how it's a good game. Anyway, so the other side of that is that for scaling, for eventually getting to the macro, just like the guy most recently interviewed in the New York version of the School of Hard Knocks video sort of vlog, interviewing people on the street of New York City, the most recent one entailed a guy from Freshly.com who sold Freshly.com for $1.5 billion, and ultimately he started owning 100% of the company, and then he gave away 90% of the company to be able to grow it to $1.5 billion in an exit. So in essence, that cost of 90%, it scaled up the ability to scale up. So that's the macro. That's focusing on the macro. But starting with the micro gives something and somebody else the potential to scale something, after all, exceptionally. And another instance to be able to focus on, in addition to finding a macro team is just a necessity. So having the macro team in mind, first of all, like down the line, is a necessity, but that's outside of yourself. If you're just starting with the micro, extremely focused on the micro and meditating on the micro is necessary. And growing, the caveat to try to get to the macro, in essence, is focusing exceptionally on the details, starting to measure the details exceptionally, starting to measure out every detail to try to get and draw out like the essence of returns on marketing, but just measuring, taking detailed, exceptional, day-to-day detailed notes, measuring out the data structure of these notes, so that in essence you start to see a story. You start to see a storyline, and the storyline that you start to see from trying to draw your own microprocess, develop your own microprocess, just to get to the marketplace, the data structure that starts to develop. It starts to tell a story. In addition to the social media marketing content that you should be making for the internet to know about your product, your brand, your story, your process, your micro foundational insertion into the marketplace, which is what we're trying to do, Dinky T, Change for Games. It's also necessary to keep this data close so that you're able to tell a story with your own data, or in the long run, so that if you're ever trying to sell your company down the line to somebody else, not meaning directly exit the company, but sell it to the macro team, tell the macro team about it, that all this detailed data can tell a story. And at the same time, it also teaches you to look for the right data whenever buying a company in the future, or trying to option a company to be able to buy it and then sell it in the future, because there's so many different variables that can go wrong in companies in terms of buying a company, that the data structure needs to align with the people structure, the people spiritual finance, which is what this podcast is all about. The spiritual finance is meant to align with you if you're ever trying to acquire a company, because there's many companies changing hands and a lot of them are old. So a lot of them that are old hopefully have ritualized processes, and those are the type of companies that are ideal because those ritualized processes tell static, consistent data storylines that are meant to be able to tell the story of reliability, minus the instance of silent partners popping up out of nowhere, minus the instance of bad conceptual loans that are attached or other conceptual items that are like sort of hidden beneath the cracks in the surface, so that you're prepared by having a large company and a large process around you that knows and is prepared for all the little items that are not necessarily known or seen on the surface per se, to be able to try to adapt in the marketplace, if you will, but trying to look out for data structures that speak to reliability, consistency, and fundamental integrity in terms of the data structures is what you learn when you take extreme notes, extreme care, extreme consideration of the micro data. The micro data, as you're trying to grow a company on a day-to-day basis, is many notes of the data, of the measurements that you can try to possibly string through and strewn into a storytelling data, so that you practice that. So if you're looking at other companies, analyzing different companies, that you start to recognize hopefully viable, interesting, unique, and also studied patterns, because you're also studying the patterns of other companies and other mergers and acquisitions companies out there that have other data insights and good things and assets and liabilities that they look for, red flags, in other words, that they look for when that are, not good or not bad, in other words, when analyzing another company, when looking at beyond just the cash flow and the numbers, and then also the good things, the positive things, the attributes that speak to integrity, that speak to positivity, that speak to reliability, and these sorts of things, to develop data structures of your own, so that you get a storytelling process to be able to just like maybe, familiarity, Micro Pollo, extreme necessity to focus hard on micro, to try to change the hats that we're trying to stack on top of each other into one fluid hat, so that in essence, upon reconfiguring the shape, the material, and such things, that it becomes one hat, to conceptualize a micro entry place into like an agency, marketing agency of sorts, that is very, sort of outlandish, or sort of off the beaten, the normalcy of marketing agencies, if you will, in comparison to the type of brand that we're trying to bring forth, if you will. And that's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky T, Change for Games. Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye, peace, bye. And let's all remember to push for world peace every single day. Let's all remember to push for world peace every single day. Let's push for world peace every single day. And also, let's remember to try to clear the animal shelters. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world. Let's clear all the animal shelters in the world, because we can foster all the shelter animals. We can adopt all the shelter animals in the world. We can rescue all the shelter animals in the world, and we can also hire the shelter animals as healers. We can also hire the shelter animals as healers all throughout the world, so that they don't have to be mistreated in animal shelters, and we can clear the animal shelters, and we can hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities. Hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities, because they also work for free, and they could use better purpose and use better jobs and be able to add value and be therapeutic energy for humans and humanity, to help us be more harmonious as humans and among humanity for all the animals in the world, to clear all the animal shelters, to try to get them to transition their energy in terms of therapeutic energy to all humans, so we can clear the animal shelters to add value to humanity in terms of harmony if possible. And let's push for world peace every single day and clear the animal shelters every day. That's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye. Peace. Bye.